This week, you're going to have to deal with a lot of stuff from the past because it's going to be coming up again. And the way I'd like to put this week is that a lot of fate is at play. And that's because by the end of this week, we will be having the sun conjoining the south node and Mercury conjoining the south node right before we head into an eclipse that we'll have next week. So let's go ahead and get started talking about it. Welcome back to the Astrology Report. My name is Cam White. If you don't know me already, I'm a professional astrologer. I've been doing this for almost 8 years. I've literally have hundreds of videos on this stuff. And if you like to keep track of what the hell is going on in the universe, which is what my weekly astrology horoscope used to be called, a super weird flashback moment right there, consider subscribing and like the video if you like it, and comment below and let me know what you're excited for and what you're not excited for this week. So we start the week off on Monday with the moon in Gemini making a square to Saturn, and then it's going to make a conjunction to Jupiter. And this is kind of a rough start to the week. Not really knowing exactly what to do and feeling a little bit overwhelmed. You know, with the moon making a square to Saturn, the moon in Gemini, we are a little bit more focused on our ideas and communication, but Jupiter's there, so it's a little overwhelming. But first they'll hit Saturn, and Saturn, you know, the moon making a square to Saturn is typically like a no or hitting a block. So I just feel like waking up on Monday is just going to be like, ugh, I've got so much to do and I feel really overwhelmed. And then as the moon does conjoin Jupiter, though, there are some solutions. There is a little bit of figuring it out, but it still will feel like a little bit too much. And as we go over through the next couple of weeks and, you know, Jupiter goes retrograde and stuff like that, that's going to start to go away. But what you'll really see with the moon making that conjunction to Jupiter, seeing all of the options and all of the ways that you can have solutions, but just probably feeling a little overwhelmed by it. And then we get into Tuesday. On Tuesday, we're going to be having the moon, while it's still in Gemini, making a square to Mercury, and then it will also square Neptune. Then the moon is going to ingress into Cancer, and it's going to make a trine to Venus. I'm laughing because I have something funny to say about that. And then we have our highlight for the week, one of our highlights for the week, and that's going to be Mercury making a trine to Uranus. So Tuesday's a little bit all over the place, but the first thing is with the moon in Gemini making a square to Mercury and Neptune is like there's going to be some like quick thinking. There's going to be some more information, but it's still going to leave you a little bit more confused. Typically, I don't care for the moon making a square to Mercury, but the moon's in Gemini making a square to Mercury in Virgo. So Mercury is in its home sign. It's in its domicile. It is exalted. It is doing just fine. And I almost wonder if the moon in Gemini is kind of like brainstorming and figuring things out and just having a level of like being open-minded about how things can work. However, when the moon does square Neptune, there's a little bit of fog that comes up that's like, okay, here's all these ideas. Which one is really going to be the best? The good news is by the end of the day, Mercury makes that trine to Uranus where, again, there's a solution. There's a breakthrough. The Mercury-Uranus thing, too, is like also like a random communication thing can happen. And again, when I say random communication, there's so many ways in life things can be communicated to, whether it's like you and your, you know, spouse, or again, you know, your neighbor brings something up, or again, your work brings something up. Mercury trining Uranus might just be kind of like random communication of something. And I don't look at this as really bad at all, but just more so of like, it's just going to come up in your face. But after the moon makes that square to Mercury and Neptune, it's then going to ingress into Cancer, and it's going to trine Venus in Scorpio. I went over this in the game plan over on my memberships, over on my website. If you're not there already, go ahead and check that out. But this month, we have so many water sign transits, and they're not that good. It's like Venus in detriment, Mars fallen, trining Saturn and Pisces. So we have two malefics in water signs, and then we have Venus, a benefic, in detriment, making a trine to all of them. So there's a lot of like uncomfortable things that we're doing, but it's all really supported really well. But the thing I wanted to bring about with the moon in Cancer trining Venus in Scorpio is the moon in Cancer is like, okay, we're bringing up sensitivity and taking care of things. And the moon in Cancer trining Venus in Scorpio is so like, I've talked a lot about Venus in Scorpio being kind of like, you know, again, either like celibacy or like BDSM stuff. And like the moon in Cancer trining Venus in Scorpio is like aftercare, if that makes sense. Like things got a little bit too rough and there needs to be some sweet tenderness to be like, oh, it's okay. This is safe. That's kind of the vibe where I would look at the moon in Cancer trining Venus in Scorpio as just allowing yourself to take care of what you need to take care of, rather than things feeling like too extreme. Just like, hey, what's going to make you feel calm? What's going to make you feel good? And you might be a little bit more pent up is probably a good way to look at it, but it's just needing a little bit of aftercare, taking care of yourself a little bit and not being so hard on yourself. Because I really think over this month, it's going to be really easy to be hard on ourselves. And what I like about all of these water transits is there are opportunities to like, hey, we can be aware that we're going through kind of a tough time and that we have to do a lot of deep work, but we can take care of ourselves as we go through that too. And then we get to Wednesday, and the first highlight that we have on Wednesday is Mercury is going to make an opposition to Neptune, and Mercury is going to trine Pluto. So those are both highlights that we have. And as we're going through that, the moon is going to conjoin Mars and trine Saturn. So two different stories kind of going on here. I like Mercury trining Uranus. That's like all of a sudden, solution, breakthrough, very, inspirational. And then the moon goes opposite Neptune, where there's more of a creative problem solving to this. What I don't like about Mercury opposite Neptune, though, is it's like you're all organized, you have everything going according to plan, or at least you have the plan laid out, but there's still something that you're uncertain about. There's still something that is foggy. There's still something that is illusory, that is like hard to really grasp. So it's kind of like seeing through the fog, but understanding that the fog is still there. For example, it's like having your fog lights turned on. You could see better, but that doesn't mean you can go 100 miles an hour on a windy road through the mountains because it's foggy. That's the way I would really look at this. But what I do like is Mercury trining Pluto. We have a lot of aspects to Pluto over the next, honestly, like 6 months. But Pluto is about to station direct. Pluto is about to leave Capricorn here really soon. So we kind of have, we have some Pluto work to do is probably a good way to look at it. Mercury trining Pluto, I think, is just tapping into the power part of Pluto. Pluto is corruption and fear, but it is empowerment. And I think Mercury and Virgo trining Pluto is like, don't be afraid to let yourself feel empowered, especially when it comes to how you're thinking, your ideas, and just feeling good about being like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. I can figure it out. I've got it all under control. The issue is the moon's going to be in Cancer on Wednesday, and it's going to be conjoining Mars in Cancer as well. And we're going to be crabby. We're going to be emotional. When the moon is going to be in Aries and in Cancer, I think is going to be kind of like some of the worst times of the next couple of months. And as the moon is conjoining Mars in Cancer, there is this kind of crabbiness. However, there's a level of nurturing and having to take care of something. The way I look at it is, for example, I forgot where I just talked about this, whether it was on a weekly or it was somewhere on I just talked about this somewhere in a video, and I never remember where I talk about things. But sometimes you can be in a situation that stokes your adrenaline. Like, let's say you almost get in a car accident and your adrenaline's really up. Now, that moment goes away really quickly, but the emotional state that you're in takes a really long time to dissipate. And you might be angry. You might, flip off the guy, or you might, freak out and kind of yell. And it takes a while for your body to relax a little bit. And I look at the moon conjoining Mars in Cancer as like, hey, you're going to feel a little bit stressed. You're going to feel a little bit like you might need to lash out a little bit. Take care of yourself during that time, if that makes sense. Like, it's one of those things of like, for example, if someone goes through something really crazy and they get really worked and pissed off, like, you're going to have to let them get, pissed off and worked up for a minute. And it's going to take time to calm down. Like, hey, smoke a cigarette if that's what you do. Just sit down, relax, breathe a little bit. That's the way I look at the moon conjoining Mars. And then the moon, as it conjoins Mars and trines Saturn, a lot of this is taking care of stuff that we have to take care of. Like, that's this whole fucking Mars retrograde is we have to do some work that we don't want to do. And we have to take care of shit that we don't want to do. But this is the most supportive time for it. This is the time where we can do all of it. And it's going to suck as we go through it. But that's what we have to do. And I think the moon conjoining Mars and then making that trine to Saturn is like, okay, I have to confront this. I have to take care of this. I have to nurture this. It doesn't feel good. It is uncomfortable, but this is the most supportive time. And so I think you're going to be more supported through Wednesday, being able to express those emotions and be crabby. Just try not to lash out on people. That's going to be a really big goal over the next, couple months, is just not lashing out and not just being super defensive and, irrational. And then we get to Thursday. And the first highlight that we have on Thursday is Mercury is going to ingress into Libra. I like that, but that's where, again, a lot of this week is bringing up stuff from the past and having to close some stuff out, which we'll be talking about. And that kind of starts with Mercury and Libra. And then we're going to be having the moon make a sextile to Uranus. It's going to trine Neptune and then go opposite Pluto. And then the moon's going to ingress into Leo and then make a sextile to Mercury. So there's a lot to talk about here. With Mercury going into Libra, there is a little bit more of a focus on, again, like balance, peace. Like Mercury and Virgo is just being like, studious. Like, it's very like, let's be organized, let's be detailed, let's get everything in a list. Mercury in Libra is more of like focusing and managing relationships and being a little bit more diplomatic. The only thing I want to bring up with Mercury ingressing into Libra is there's this unnerving feeling that something is coming up. And we're going to have that feeling in a couple different ways, which I'm about to explain. But with Mercury going to Libra, it's about to conjoin the South Node. There's about to be this cazimi on the South Node. We're about to have an eclipse on Mercury. There's this unnerving thing that things are about to start coming up. Stuff from the past that we're going to start handling. And this is why I kind of made an idea for the title is like fate is coming into play. And I feel like we're really going to start seeing that wind turn in that direction. But let's talk about the moon. While, again, it's in Cancer, making a sextile to Uranus, trining Neptune, going opposite Pluto. The way I'm going to talk about this for a while, sorry, I'm looking at my notes here because I want to make sure I say this specifically. we are going to be doing a lot of emotional bouncing around during this time. When the moon is in water and earth signs, it's going to, like right as it leaves, it's going to be making either trines or sextiles or conjunctions to Uranus. Same thing with Neptune and Pluto. There's going to be all this bouncing around. And it is emotional bouncing around. Again, like Uranus is going to be upheaval and inspiration, innovation. Neptune is like illusion, fantasy, creativity. And then Pluto is like power, right? As we see this transit continue on for the next little while, we are going to see there being this feeling of something bigger happening. Because the thing to understand is right now we are in the shits, essentially. Like over these next few months, we have this whole Mars retrograde, and then next year it is everything moves into new zodiac signs. We are at that point of we're getting ready for that huge new shift. And as the moon is bouncing between all of these outer planets, it's like bigger picture stuff. And not bigger picture as in like Jupiter, like, oh, what does this mean spiritually and stuff like that. It's like there's these emotional little bounces that are very present to you. Because again, it's the moon, it's the closest body to us. But it's hitting all these outer planets where it's like the things that we're feeling in this moment are being influenced by things outside of our control that, and again, this is everything is at the last 5 degrees of the zodiac signs. Like, oh my God, this is changing. That's changing. There's this bigger scale shift that's going to be happening. And I feel like with the moon making all of these aspects to the outer planets, it's like, yes, there's some emotional bouncing around, but it's about closing things out and getting ready for new stuff. It's like, I almost feel like this is, I don't want to say like the final countdown, but I find over these next few months as the moon aspects all of these outer planets all at the same time at the end of these zodiac signs, again, we're like closing out chapters, because when we get to 2025, the moon will be making, again, like a trine or a conjunction or a sextile to Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune all at the beginning of signs. So when we get to 2025, it's going to be like starting all of these new things and all these new things kind of going on. But right now we're at the closing time. Okay. It's closing time. Okay. Anyway. But then after that, the moon will ingress into Leo and sextile Mercury. A lot of pride and cleverness, like just feeling kind of good about how you handled situations, feeling confident, wanting to get some praise and stuff like that. And I just feel like the moon and Leo sextiling Mercury and Libra is like really good for like acknowledging someone or someone acknowledging you and just saying something, nice. Don't be afraid to give compliments. We're in such a fucking fucked up world and everyone's so fucking mean. Like, give a compliment to someone, like praise someone. They deserve it most of the time and they could probably use it. And same thing with you. You'd probably feel a lot better if someone praised you for some small shit that you did. And then on Friday, we're going to have the moon in Leo making a square to Venus and Scorpio. Not hot girl shit. It is not hot girl shit. It is freaky though. Like the moon in Leo squaring Venus and Scorpio is very like when you don't, have you ever seen those memes where it's like you dress up for the function, but everyone else is not dressed up and you're kind of overdressed and then you feel like a little like not good. That's kind of the vibe. It's definitely not hot girl shit, but it is freaky. Freaky is like, again, the moon connecting with Venus, right? We like moon-Venus connections. Those are fun. Those are pleasurable. And the moon's in Leo, it's very like hot and passionate. And Venus is in Scorpio. I've already talked a lot about what that's all about. But them making a square, the way I say it's freaky is kind of like, again, there's like tension. Sometimes tension is really good. I look at this though as like, don't let your pride or your expectations about how you're being seen like diminish your value or like make you feel less. Like the moon in Leo squaring Venus is again like maybe knowing where boundaries are or not making you like it's like you're being put in the spotlight and maybe you don't want to. You don't feel good enough. You don't feel dressed up enough or you don't feel that confident. And so just kind of watch out for that on Friday. Like on Friday, just kind of keep it cool if you're going to be going out. Otherwise, you might feel a little insecure about some things. And then we get to Saturday and the moon's going to still be in Leo. It's going to make a sextile to Jupiter, but then it will square Uranus by the end of the day. You're just going to be feeling a lot better after the moon leaves that separation with Venus and then it starts applying to Jupiter. You're feeling good. And because you feel good, you might bite off a little bit more than you can chew. It's Saturday. You can do this, you can do that. And you might feel a little bit overwhelmed with how much you kind of put on your plate. But it's kind of like you're like I can do this. Like I feel good. I feel confident. Like I could take on the world. But then as the moon squares Uranus, there's going to be things that get disrupted. So again, like maybe don't make as many promises as you should. But there is something about, going out, having fun, again, being seen, being visible. But as the moon squares Uranus, those plans will get disrupted and try not to let that bruise your ego in any way. And so then we get to Sunday. And Sunday is when all this fate stuff is playing up, right? The sun is now in Libra, Mercury is now in Libra, and we start off Sunday with the sun conjoining the south node. We then have the moon going into Virgo, and it's going to make a sextile to Venus. And then Mercury conjoins the south node, and Mars makes its trine to Saturn. This is kind of the, I feel like a lot of this week is kind of chill, like not that deep. And then all of a sudden, everything gets really deep on Sunday, like just out of nowhere. And that's why I kind of made this as like, you're going to have to deal with things from the past. There's a little bit of fate playing. And like I said, when Mercury goes into Libra on Thursday, I think you're going to feel like things are going in that direction, but just may not see it immediately. And that's what happens on Sunday. The sun conjoining the South Node, the sun has fallen in Libra, right? We don't really like the sun in Libra. Like our willpower, our confidence, it's very dependent on relationships around us. Like again, depending on who you're around, you could be around someone who's really exciting and optimistic and feel really excited to be around them. And then you could be around a Debbie Downer and be like, fuck, I'm depressed. The sun conjoining the South Node is kind of turning that up a little bit because the South Node is also draining and exhausting and it takes things away and it does bring up things from the past. So the sun being in Libra, which is a relationship-oriented sign, conjoining the South Node, again, might be like, there might be a relationship in your life that is really heavy. You know, like let's say you're married right now and Libra or the sun rules like your 7th house of relationships. Oftentimes people get really worked up on like a bad transit happening in their 7th house. Is like, oh, they're going to break up with someone. This could be as simple as just like, hey, your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, they're going through a difficult time and it's just weighing on you. You know what I mean? We're empathetic creatures. You know, we have relationships in our lives that we care about. And when you see someone going through a hard time, it's also hard on you. It could be as simple as that. The sun conjoining the South Node, though, too, is like you just feeling exhausted and drained. There might be a relationship in your life that is kind of holding you back in some sort of way. But like, again, like maybe you have to take care of them. Maybe there has to be some sort of a, balance there. I would also bring up the word karmic. Now, if you've watched me for any sort of time, I don't like using the word karma. I think astrologers throw that word around way too much. And that it's just a pop word to get you to click on shit. Stop. But the reason I like bringing up the word karmic with the South Node is it's bringing up stuff from the past. And the South Node also too, like most of the time it's taking things away, but it could bring something up for you to address. Something up that's like temporary that when you move forward with, you can kind of refer back to. The North Node is a much easier to understand than I feel like the South Node. The South Node is a little bit more elusive. But the sun conjoining the South Node, I feel like there's some sort of, again, a karmic situation. And when I say karmic, just take that with a grain of salt. Not like, this is the biggest thing ever, but more of like, okay, like something important's happening here. Something that you need to address and that feels, again, fated. I like the word fated so much more because it just feels like, again, karmic feels like there's this burden of responsibility versus fated just feels like it just happens naturally or organically. So as the moon then goes into Virgo and makes a sextile to Venus, we're going to start turning our attention to like fixating on things. Scorpio is really lockjaw on stuff and Virgo is very analytical and precise. So there is this kind of like tinkering and being really kind of fixated on something. But then as Mercury conjoins the South Node, which is our other highlight for the week or for Sunday, there's going to be the situation of having to have a talk. Mercury is about communication and ideas, and it's in Libra. It is focused on relationships. And right now, again, the ruler of Libra is Venus, and she's in detriment in Scorpio. This is going to be some uncomfortable stuff. But as Mercury conjoins the South Node, this might be having to have a talk. This might be receiving a letter or some sort of communication that you didn't want to happen, but you kind of anticipated it. Maybe you were trying to avoid it a little bit. I don't look at this really as bad. Like, I think the way I keep coming back to this month is, or when I say this month, I'm already in October, is it's rough, but it's needed. Like something I like about astrology is it wouldn't be happening if we didn't need to go through it. You know what I mean? Like even bad things in your life, and there's like, a weird gray area where it's like, you're not responsible for the bad things that were outside of your control that happened to you, but there's something that you were supposed to get out of it. There was something that you were supposed to learn or go through during that time. And that's, just kind of how life is. And I look at Mercury conjoining the South Node as this isn't bad. It just has to be addressed. And it's about moving on from things. It's about things kind of going away. I mean, the other exciting thing as, we get really into next week, but the Mercury conjoining the South Node is like mentally, it's easier to let go of stuff. Like think about it. Like Venus and Scorpio, Scorpio's so good about holding on. And Venus and Scorpio is kind of like, like really holding on to something, maybe not even enjoying it. And then, the sun and Mercury being ruled by Venus, conjoining the South Node, I just feel like it's going to just be easy for things to move on, to get rid of, and to, excise out of your life. And again, I don't look at this as bad, but there's a Mercury conjoining the South Node again. It might just be like a bill that you didn't expect, or something coming up from the past that you're like, fuck, I forgot I need to handle that and I have to take care of it. It doesn't have to be that deep. However, I think because of where things are at, it just feels deeper. Like we're all going to be a little bit more sensitive as the weeks go on because of everything in the water signs. And then we have Mars trine Saturn as our last highlight. And Mars is going to trine Saturn I believe 3 times. So this is our first trine to Saturn. It will trine Saturn again when it's retrograde, I believe sometime around January. And then around April, I believe it trines Saturn again. So this is our first one. And this is why I've talked about this being very supportive. Like Mars is in Cancer. That's fights, conflicts, anger, and aggression. It's fallen. It's not doing all that well. It's in Cancer, which is about nurturing and protecting. And so there's this level of like, I have to address something I don't want to address. I have to take care of something that, you know, it creates a lot of hostility or sensitivity to me. But it's trining Saturn where there's this, like what I really wrote down is like, this sucks, but the hard work is supported. Like on my game plan video I put on the memberships, I titled October about intervention. And the reason I titled it intervention is it's like, okay, like let's say you're a drug addict, you walk into your house, all of your family and friends are there and they're addressing your problem and it doesn't feel that good, but you're supported through it. Like your friends, your family are there to support you and they're there to help you and it's all out of love, but name an intervention that's fun. It's not fun, but you're not alone through it. Like an intervention is like people are there because they love and care about you and they want to see you do the best. But like you've got to, you know, stop fucking being a drug addict. You know what I mean? Like you're fucking killing yourself. So that's the vibe of the Mars trine Saturn is like there's something that you have to confront, but there's a lot of support with it. And you know you have to do it. And you know it's going to be rewarding. It's just going to be hard as we go through it. That's the whole vibe of all of this. And I think it's really weird because while at certain points it is bad, like it's not fun, but it could be so much worse in that there is some sort of anchor of support. Like a Mars Saturn trine is so like hard work, meeting discipline, and it works out. But it's like Mars in Cancer, where it's like, well, this isn't like the work that you want to do. This is not what you want to do. But you're going to be supported through it. And it's Saturn in Pisces. Saturn in Pisces is, again, like internal spirituality, like the yin part of ourselves, the receptive part of ourselves. Like we need to be a lot more serious. We need to have better boundaries. We need to be more disciplined and more responsible. And so that happens on Sunday. So like a lot of this week is kind of whatever. Then all of a sudden Sunday, the vibe shifts. Sunday, there's a vibe shift. And that brings us to next week, which we have a Mercury Cazimi, which is again, that clarity, that idea, that handling the problem, getting the solution, having that line of communication that has to happen. And then we get the solar eclipse in Libra. Next week is a major ending, but then Mars enters shadow and we get the beginning of the next phase, which is really interesting. We have the Venus-Saturn trine. I have a funny meme about that. And then we have Mercury making a square to Mars. And so we are going to lash out a little bit. The next coming weeks are going to be interesting, guys. Stay tuned for more. Again, let me know what you're excited for. Let me know what you're not excited for in the comments below. Like this if you haven't already. It does help me out. And subscribe. Make sure that you get all of the videos because sometimes I feel like I'm shadow banned. But anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.